And we are live. What's going on, YouTube? This is your boy Billy Rowe. Welcome to the first row. Today is Wednesday, and if you know anything about me, if it's a Wednesday and I'm on first row, it's time for the Wednesday word. That is Wednesday word. Jumping straight into it, my computer tried to do me dirty and lost connection to the internet right before I went live, but I figured it out and brought it back on live. So let's get this game started. Again, happy to be here today on the third Wednesday of the month. Hopefully you guys are ready for the message. Today's topic is entitled Check the Expiration Date. So if you are a friend of mine on Facebook, or even if you're not and you just go to my Facebook page because it's public, not everything, but the post that I put yesterday, it was public. I put a post up yesterday and it said that some of us are hanging out with expired relationships. And even worse, some of us are still boasting expired growth. So this is what today's topic is about. It's about those expired relationships and how we should address them. So tonight I got top three tools for you when it comes to checking those expired relationships and really filtering them, whether they need to be in your life or out of your life. So I hope you guys are ready to rock and roll. Thank you for those who are watching live, or if you're watching via the replay, thank you also for tuning in. So let's get started, jumping straight into it. So the very first tool that I came up with, tools for the first row, as always, that I came up with when it comes to checking expiration dates was don't be afraid to take inventory. And the reason this is an important tool is because sometimes we just keep people around in our lives because they're comfortable. I used to go to a counselor. My counselor would call it familiar shit. Like, it stinks, it's filthy, don't really want it, but it's yours, so you roll around and play in it. And sometimes we treat these familiar relationships like that. It's not healthy for us, it's not benefiting us, it's not sending us in the right direction, but we don't really want to look too close at it. We don't really want to take inventory on it, because then we might get rid of that comfort. We might be moved out of our comfort zone. So that's why the first tool is don't be afraid to take inventory. And so for me, it's important to place every single relationship at some point under an audit to really see if that relationship is benefiting you, if it's in the best interest of both parties, not just in the best interest of you, but also in the best interest of the other person. I can tell you from experience, and I can tell you from on both sides, experience on both sides, that when a relationship benefits just you, that means the person on the other side is kind of suffering every time they have to interact with you. And on the other side of that, when the relationship just benefits the other party, that means you're the person suffering on the other side every time you interact with them. So it's very important to place every relationship under an audit. And this is not just romantic. This can be your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your son, your daughter, auntie, uncle, cousin, niece, nephew, whoever. It can be whoever the relationship is with. Anybody that you have a connection with. And I'm going to even go a step further, especially when you have an intimate connection, and intimacy not being sexual intimacy, but intimacy being a closeness and a deeper level relationship with. It is important to put those people under, it is important to scrutinize those relationships at some point, not all the time, but at some point you should be scrutinizing those relationships. And I would go as far as to say frequently, but not frequently like every month you scrutinize it, but like if it's every 6 months or every year, at least have some form of routine or frequency that you're reevaluating the friendships and the relationships that you have. Hey, what's going on, brother? What's going on, Geraldine? So that's the first thing. Also, understand when you're not afraid to take inventory of your relationships, what you'll start to do is you'll understand how to quickly or I'm not even gonna say quickly, I'm gonna say efficiently identify those signs that the expiration date on the relationship has passed. Is this person a time drain? Is this person an energy drain? Is this person unappreciative, ungrateful? Is this person a selfish person? I mean, we all know what it is to smell like bad meat or bad milk. It's like, ooh, you smell fishy, or you smell spoiled. Well, does this person smell selfishy? Do they smell like do they have characteristics that show that they are really in the relationship for themselves and what they can get out of it, and don't have any really true regard for what they can add to that relationship. Hey, what's going on, cousin? Um, so that's important in your audit process, that you identify those key signs of that expiration date passing. Look, there's stuff you can get in the store. I got probably in my pantry right now some bread from 4th of July that I need to throw away because I don't see any mold on it, but I know it's past the sell by date, and I don't plan on eating any of that bread anytime soon. So I'm gonna let it go and throw it away and purge it out of my pantry so it doesn't. Key point about why it's important to do this inventory. So it doesn't impact the other food in my pantry. Now, obviously, it may not impact like a canned good or something, but if there's mildew bread next to mildew bread, I promise you that will spread to the other healthy bread. And if you have mildewed relationships or expired relationships that are coming around you, that's not only going to impact you, it can also begin to impact those healthy relationships that you have that have passed audit in your life. You don't want to be that person who's like, well, I would invite Billy, but Billy's going to bring X relationship with him if we invite him. So therefore, we're going to go ahead and keep it out of Billy's hands. We're not going to invite Billy at all. So that's the other aspect of taking inventory. And then the last aspect of taking inventory and not being afraid to take inventory is realizing something that's very, very important, is that friction in relationships is normal. I have some really, I would say, some world-class friends. I have some world-class family as well, but I have some world-class friends, and we don't always see eye to eye. However, it's because we're two different people. So that friction between us is normal. The question is what is the lubricant between us that keeps that friction from overheating the relationship? And so I ask myself this, and I ask it in two categories. Is the lubricant that the friendship requires, is it a synthetic lubricant? Is it my money? I got money, so therefore, as long as I got money, the relationship is still going to have that lubrication? Is it the events that I can go to or invite to? Is it the party activities? Is it he's the life of the party? Is that the friction or the lubricant that keeps that friction from overheating the relationship? Or is it something that's more natural? Is it the compassion? Is it the depth of the thought that the person takes? Is that the lubricant that is creating, is helping to ease that friction in the relationship? When you have an understanding of what the lubricant is, then you can really start to measure, hey, is this relationship something that's healthy for me, or is this relationship something that I kind of need to start moving on from? Because I can't guarantee that tomorrow I'll still have as much money as I have today. But what I can do is guarantee that the character that I have today, that character is not only going to be the same tomorrow, it's going to grow in a healthy direction. So that's the other thing. And then the bonus, that was the last thing, but the bonus thing in this particular category is when I say don't be afraid to take an audit, what I don't mean is making emotionally volatile decisions. I mean, don't say, oh, well, we got in an argument and so now it's over. Look, I've had plenty of arguments with people in my entire life. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a confrontational person, which means I do not shy away from confrontation. So I can't, in my audit process, simply say, we had an argument. I don't like the way that I feel right now in this moment, right after the argument. We're done. And there's times where even as today, as a human, I have to just take a step away and go and clear my mind and clear my thoughts and say, okay, is what I want to do as I take this instant audit, is what I want to do reasonable? Is what I want to do mature? Is it a good decision to make right now in the state that I'm in? Because the thing is the relationship will continue to go even if I have to take a break from it. I might have to say, hey, look, I need to take 2-3 days from this relationship to get my mind right in order to really evaluate if this relationship is the direction I still want to head, whether that's a romantic relationship, whether that's a parental relationship, a friendship, or even a business relationship. You have the right to take a step back and give your emotions time to calm down, because we're all human. So we all have some type of an emotional climate. Give yourself, your emotions, an opportunity to calm down, so that way you can come back and approach truly in an inventory and audit fashion, unbiasedly, hey, is this a good relationship still to date? Or has it reached a point where it's no longer good for me and I need to move on from it? And so that maturity and that approach, what it does is it makes sure the relationships that you do have are beneficial to both sides. Because if I can't be who you need me to be, or I don't want to be who you need or want me to be, then there's no point in us being in a relationship, because I'm going to let you down time and time again, because I ain't gonna be changing who to who I don't want to be. So that's tool number one. Sorry that that was so lengthy, but I had to get that out. Tool number two, when it comes to checking the expiration date, is accept that every relationship that you have is 100% allowed by you. That sounds crazy. I don't put like 100% on anything. I'm an analyst. We don't like to act, to function in absolutes. However, I will tell you that what I mean by this is that I don't care if it's your mother, if it's your father, if it's your sister, your brother, every single relationship that you have is a direct result of the allowance that you have made for it. Relationships can't exist without both parties agreeing to the relationship. I can't go up to some random stranger girl and be like, hey, look, you my girlfriend, we go together. If she don't agree to that, guess who she ain't? She ain't my girlfriend. So at some point, when you understand that every relationship that you have is a result of you allowing it, it puts 100% of the power, 100% of the control into your hands. You get to say who is there and who is not. Now, what I will say, a caveat to this is, even if it's your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, any of your family members, you get to say who's there or not. You don't get to say that they ain't your mama, they ain't your daddy, they ain't your sister, they ain't your brother. That is genetically done outside of the scope of your power. However, the level of interaction that you have with them, and who you choose to relate to them as, that is 100% in your power. That ball is in your court. So that's what I mean when I say every relationship that you have is 100% on you. Again, I don't want you to take that into a volatile emotional state, saying, well, right now I don't like you, so we're not friends. Look, I've been out of kindergarten for a long time, and I can honestly probably say I didn't care when I was in kindergarten if he was my friend or not. You can either be my friend or you cannot be my friend. We can either play tag or we cannot play tag. But guess what? At the end of the day, I'm gonna find somebody to play tag with because I love tag. So try to keep out of that emotional state, and it's okay to assess how you feel emotionally. I'm not saying like just be cold-hearted and only logic. It's okay to assess how you feel emotionally about somebody. Look, if I grew up in a household where I felt like my parents didn't care about me and they were never there for me and they didn't do things for me that I would have done for me as their child, and I feel like it was harmful to me emotionally, when I revisit that, I'm going to have some kind of emotional collateral damage from that. So I'm going to interact with that and say, hey, look, based on this emotional collateral damage, is this somebody I want to continue to forge a relationship with in my life? Now, fortunately for me, I had two good parents. They weren't the best, but they were two good parents, and they did everything that they could to make sure I stayed on the right track. So when I assess that, it's like, yeah, they did some things I don't agree with. They did some things that kind of I felt like undermined me a little bit. But at the end of the day, they were solid parents doing what they were trying to do to get me to where I need to be as the man I am today. So when it comes to accepting that relationship that I have with my parents, I realize even today, it's 100% on me to allow my parents to be in my life. Look, I'm an adult at this point. So as an adult, I can either call my mom and check on her, call my dad and check on him, or not. And they can either call their son and check on him or not. But they can call me and I can decide these are people that I don't want to interact with in my life and not answer the phone because it's 100% in my control. So that's what I mean by that. And realize that when you do that, you're doing what's best for both sides. When you realize that you have 100% ownership on who you allow in, and especially when you choose not to allow somebody in, you're not doing that just for you. You absolutely benefit, but you're also doing that for them, because the last thing you want is somebody who wants to be connected and you don't, and they come to lean on you, or they come to ask for your time, or they come to do something where they truly, truly need you, and you're like, I didn't want to be your friend in the first place. I didn't want to have this relationship in the first place. And they fall flat on their face when they had the opportunity for you to be honest with them and say, this is not really what I want. This is not what I'm pursuing. So that way, don't come leaning this way, because there's nothing over here to catch you. You might want to find another direction to lean in, something that is more healthy for you and healthy for that person, but that's not over here. So that's tool number 2. Tool number 3 is measure the nutrients of the relationship. So again, this is a lot about getting away from the emotional, volatile responses that we have with the, I'm not your friend anymore. I'm not your brother anymore. I'm not your boyfriend anymore. When we get away from those responses that are emotional, knee-jerk reactions, and we move into true, I'm going to call it analysis of the relationships, true audit mode of the relationship, we start measuring the nutrients of the relationship. So I liken this to a strawberry. If I actually like strawberries, but for some reason, every time I buy strawberries, I can't eat them fast enough and they mildew. Now, I know that strawberries have a nutritional value. So when I first buy them and I cut them up, put them in a smoothie or whatever I do to eat them, I consume them, I'm good to go. However, once they start to mold, I don't say, well, I'm going to go ahead and eat these moldy strawberries. I'm going to eat these rotten strawberries, because that same thing that is healthy for me, once it reaches that expiration date, please follow me here. That same thing that is healthy for me, that same fruit, that same person that is healthy for me before it expires, is toxic for me after it expires. So where strawberries will benefit me, give me energy to work out, energy to get some fiber in my system, some sugar, all those different things, while they're pre-expiration, once they expire, they become toxic. So now I'm inducing vomiting. Now I'm not feeling well. Now I'm lethargic. Now I'm under the weather. All those things happen. And just like with fruit, people, when we allow them to remain in our lives past their expiration date, my goodness, they will become toxic. They may have been great at a certain point in your life. They may have been the person who got you through some of the hardest times in your life. But I hate to break this bad news. When you look at this audit on a frequent basis, duration of the relationship, what you've gone through in the relationship, all those things kind of need to take a back seat to the present health that relationship provides you. And that is I feel like it's a cold statement, but it's a necessary statement, because a lot of times we stay in these relationships. We stay in these relationships where we're being abused. I don't care if it's physically or verbally or mentally, we're being abused, and we stay in these relationships because of history. But the history is past, and it's not even on the horizon to repeat itself. Oh, but he was there when when I first did this, or she was there when I got out of this situation. And measure the nutrients based on the current status of the relationship. What's going on, Sylvia? And so also, what does the relationship add to you? This is another aspect of measuring the nutrients, because it's not just what it adds to you, but is it important? And so, does the relationship add healthy things like your growth? Does it help you to make better decisions? Does it help you to have a voice of reason to act as a sounding board? Or does the relationship offer you something like status? Well, I know this person, they get into all the great events, so therefore I'm going to be connected to them at the hip, because wherever they go, I can go, and I kind of get to act as a parasite, because that's really what that is. Like you're feeding off of somebody else's success, and in the process of feeding off their success, you're not doing anything to establish your own success to bring to the table. So look at what the relationship adds to you, but then also determine if it's important. Look, for me, status is not really the biggest thing. Like, you can like me, you can love me, you can make more than me, you can make less than me. All those things don't really matter. But if you're not willing to go in certain directions now, when it comes to the things that I'm trying to do as growth, then yeah, I don't care what your status is. you're not heading in my direction. So I'm not going to keep going back and going back and going back and going back and going back to get you. I'm going to say, hey, look, this is where I'm headed. I don't really see you headed there. The lubricant between us is not a healthy enough lubricant to keep that friction from building up and overwhelming the relationship and burning out the engine. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. And so that's the third thing. And a part of that measuring of the nutrients is realize that just because somebody's a time drain, just because somebody's an energy drain, those are not the only key factors in deciding if a relationship is healthy. Because if they are only a time drain or only an energy drain, then yeah, then that may be a no-brainer. But if they have that characteristic where, man, every time I get on the phone with them, time flies, I'm on the phone with them for 3 hours, yeah, that's time drain. But if you're talking about things that are edifying, helping you grow, you're not talking about the same story over and over again. The 4 touchdowns you threw in a single game, in a single game in high school, if you're not talking about the same things over and over again, then there might be some growth there. So really be cautious that you're measuring that. And one of the things that really jumped out to me about this measuring the nutrients was the law of 33. And the law of 33 states have 33% of each category: people below your level, people at your level, and people above your level. That law of 33 really kind of helps when you're looking at these relationships, because if somebody is below your level, it's okay for them to be below your level. They may not be below your level on everything, so don't get that confused, but it's okay for them to be below your level if they're bringing other healthy things to the relationship for the both of you. But if they're just below your level and it's like every time your phone rings, hey, can I get this? Can I borrow $20? Can I, can you pick me up and take me here? Can you do, can you? And especially if you add ungratefulness and you're not appreciative of it, yeah, sorry, you ain't in the 33. That's below my level. You in the 33, that's on somebody else's roster because I ain't got time for the relationship. So that's the main thing or the last thing when it comes to measuring the nutrients of your relationships. Really look at the current status of the relationship and realize that if you are operating past that expiration date, you're now operating in a place that's dealing with toxins that can impact you and impact that person. Then I got a bonus one. This is not necessarily for this, but because of the thought that brought this about, the fourth bonus tool is check the expiration dates of your growth. Again, that Al Bundy 4 touchdowns back in high school. Look, I was in high school in 1999, dang, 21 years ago. So if I'm still boasting about the growth from 21 years ago, but don't have anything new to talk about 21 years later, that means my growth has expired. Look, it's great if I was the smartest 5th grader in my elementary school, but that was 3 decades ago. So at what point are you going to challenge yourself to grow more, not so that you have more to boast about, but so that you have something substantial substantial that you're bringing to these relationships? Because the worst thing you want to find out is that you start doing these audits and the person who's not meeting the cut for the level of the friends that you have, or the types and qualities of friends that you have, is you. So that's why I made this a 4th tool, is check the expiration date on your growth. Are you pushing yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year to be better? If you're not and you've become complacent, if you're not and you feel like you're stagnant, start reflecting on how to get through that. Maybe lean on some of those healthier relationships that above 33 for you and say, hey, I feel like I'm in a rut and I can't get unstuck. How do you do this? How would you recommend doing this? That would be why this is tool number 4. Because again, the last thing you want to do is look at a relationship in an audit and say, damn, I'm not the person. I'm the person not making the cut. So really quick to go over the tools, just to recap. The very first tool when it comes to checking the expiration date is don't be afraid to take inventory. Get in, evaluate the relationship, and make sure you use as much unbiased analysis as possible. I'm not going to tell you to be perfect. What's going on, Lewis? Number two is accept that every relationship that you have is 100% allowed by you. Own that part. Own the relationships that you have in your life. People don't get to just jump on the bandwagon or the vehicle of Billy Rowe just because they want to. There is definitely a screening process, and if you don't make the cut, I'm sorry, you don't make the cut. This ain't that everybody gets a trophy, participation trophy relationship game for me. So if you don't make the cut, you don't make the cut, and that is what it is. Number three, and that doesn't mean that I'm special, by the way. That just means that I have standards for the relationships that I have in my life. And if you don't make that cut for that standard, it's no dig to you. You probably make the cut for somebody else's team. You just don't make the cut for mine. Then number three is measure the nutrients of your relationship. What does a relationship add to you? Is the relationship past the point where it was healthy and now is into a point where it's toxic? And then the bonus tool being check the expiration date of your growth. Don't be that person who gets X'd off the list in the audit because you were so busy celebrating your win 10 years ago. Let's celebrate some new wins. Let's celebrate some new growth. And so that's all I got for you guys today. But I will say, as always, I do have a story, something that kind of, and it's not really even a clear story, but it's something that got me thinking about this topic, about checking your expiration dates. It's something that really prompted me to put my post up yesterday about checking the expiration date. And the best way to wrap it up is to say, in the world of dating and in the world of reestablishing friendships, you would think that these two worlds are easy. Maybe not so much the dating world, but reestablishing a friendship. If things didn't end on bad terms and you just maybe fell out of contact over time because life happens, families happen, and all kinds of things happen, and we get busy with our time. But I guess we'll go with reestablishing friendships. And so for me, I would say I pride myself on the diversity of friendships that I have, and I don't mean just there's cultural diversity, there's professional diversity, there's intellectual diversity. There's all kinds of different diversity within my circle of friends, and I have different layers of circles of friends. Some people I'm very close with, some people I'm at arm's length, some people I'll give a hug or a dap when I see them. But in reestablishing friendships, what I've learned is that sometimes people come to my mind, and I'm just like, hey, I wonder how such and such is doing. And believe it or not, the place that I have begun to go to see how such and such is doing is social media. And the reason I use social media is because social media has been around long enough now to establish what I would call a trend of how a person behaves. Now, granted, social media can be considered shallow in some forms because sometimes people only post the highlights. Oh yeah, and I'm in Cabo and I'm over here and I'm over there and I'm around the world. And it's like, man, you were there like 20 years ago. You've been at home for 20 years. But it's a way for you to be able to figure out how people are trending. And I even use social media on myself. One of my favorite things about social media, especially on Facebook, is that you are able to see your memories from the current day. And when it goes back for me to like 11 years ago and 6 years ago and 5 years ago and 3 years ago and last year, I can see a pattern of growth. I can see 11 years ago, I wasn't really talking about nothing. I can see 8 years ago, I was talking about education. I can see 6 years ago, I started really focusing on growth and maturing. I could see last year that I was focused on a lot of the things that were going on from the global scale. And I can see this year what I'm speaking about and the things that are important to me. And so I see these stair steps of growth that are taking place in my life in social media. And so this is really, I guess, about when I go and I check other people's pages. And it's somebody I'm thinking about. I wonder how they're doing. And when I go there, and I obviously have a memory of what I seen the last time I was there, whether it was last week or 10 years ago. And I go there today and I see the same things being posted. I see the same behaviors being displayed. It's like, do I want to reestablish that connection? Even though we didn't end on bad terms, even though that there's an opportunity to maybe establish something, do I want to reestablish that? And that is me taking that inventory. That is me looking and saying, hey, I'm not going to be afraid to take inventory. And this is outside of the scope of my scheduled inventory, which is around January of the year. But this is immediately taking inventory and saying, you know what? I don't want somebody in my life who's not about growth. You don't have to be at my level of growth or beyond my level of growth, but you do have to be about growth. And as you know, with First Row, that is what I am about, is about growth. So though you may not have seen me for Wednesday Words, though I may have been radio silent in most cases, please believe there is not a day that I am not working on my growth as an individual, that I'm not working on my growth as a father, that I'm not working on my growth as just a human being on the planet Earth. Growth is very important to me. And so when I look at and measure the nutrients and say, hey, look, you're not going to bring a lot of growth nutrients to the relationship, that's something that I know I'm going to bring. I have friends that I've been friends with for a long time. We don't always agree, but even when we disagree, there is a growth that takes place between the both of us, whether that's learning how not to yell when you're arguing, whether that's learning how not to yell when you just have a simple disagreement, whether that's learning how to reconcile after you have a disagreement. There is growth that takes place. And so really at the end of the day, though I don't have a specific story that I want to share, I'm sure I have stories, but I don't want to share any of them because I don't want to put nobody on blast. But at the end of the day, these relationships that we're in are 100% on us. Please, please, please check the expiration date and make sure that you're not interacting with people that don't meet your health standard and are toxic to you. That's all I got for you guys today. I really appreciate you guys rocking with me. Thank you. Shout out to everybody in the chat rocking the show live. If you're watching via the replay, I hope you enjoy the message as well. As always, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But if you like this video, please share it. If you share it, please like it. As you can see, I'm happy to engage with you in the live chat, and I'm happy to engage with your comments. But until the next time I see you, one love, peace, and God bless.